Well, the pandemic has fundamentally changed nearly every aspect of our lives. It's even impacting child custody agreements, with kids continuing distance learning. Now, blended families are having to adapt, and joining us with more on this is family law attorney Bonnie Mantell. Bonnie, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Hunter, for having me.
So let's start with, this is obviously something that many who maybe are not impacted by this haven't even thought would change the way some things are being given out or being adapted to during this pandemic. So talk about just what you've seen the most problems with during this time in rearranging custody schedules and things like that.
Well, like you said, you know, the children are now having to do distance learning. So you've got parents that some of them are able to do children's homework and some of them are not. I mean, I know that I couldn't do my daughter's 6th grade homework. So what do you do in those situations? Hopefully, we are trying to get parents to cooperate and realize that if one parent is more capable, let that parent help the child, work with the child, maybe, restructure so that after school parent A picks up the kids for an extra few hours. And we try to work, with their attorneys and parties to make it so that it's not, an argument. People are not having to go back to court. Court is very, very congested. There's a lot of delays. So the more parents are able to cooperate and work these things out, the better it is, especially for the children.
Absolutely. And that was one of my questions, is whether or not they were having to go back to court to be able to work these changes out, or if it was able to do that amicably and just in person and making it. And has visitation times changed, maybe to protect parents' health if there's one that is more at risk? Has that had to adapt?
That has had to adapt as well. If you've got a parent who is either themselves at risk or, for example, an essential worker, or they live with somebody, sometimes a grandparent that's at risk, they are also having to restructure their custodial arrangements. And unfortunately, if people can't get along, if they're more afraid of, well, that's going to look like I don't have the same kind of time with my child, then people are going back to court. And we as attorneys are having to bring these new factors to the judges. This is new for everybody. The best interests of the children is always the paramount standard, but what factors are being considered for the best interests of the children is evolving with this pandemic as well.
Wow, so fascinating. What about the child custody payments and child support? Are they being given, really kind of extensions on deadlines? Because I can imagine how many parents are being impacted by being laid off.
Sure. Unfortunately, as is the case with many situations, the system hasn't yet caught up to this pandemic. So the way it always has been is if you had a valid court order, you were expected to pay it. And the way that you change that order is with a motion. So you have to file a motion and then get the court to hear it and realize your circumstances have changed. What is nice about our system is that when you file that motion, that starts the clock tolling, in the sense that even if you don't get heard for several months, the judges will make those orders back to the day that you filed that motion. So you're encouraged to pay what you can. We never say don't follow a court order, but again, the pandemic has been something new for everybody.
Well, it's nice to know that has been something that's actually adapted and adjusted with it accordingly. Well, we know Summer Stephan, the district attorney, she sent a letter to Governor Newsom last week, really urging children and giving states or counties the opportunity to send them back to in-person learning. Just talk about the rise that we've seen with kids having to stay home right now in different child abuse cases or cyber crimes.
Well, there's been a lot of spike in the domestic violence filings because, people who were already in tenuous situations having to lock down or stay at home with their abusers, with predators, it has been spiking. So we have seen that, they're reaching out, and there are a lot of online ways for these families to get their story heard. And then, obviously there are attorneys that are willing to help in any way we can to get these children out of these high-risk situations.
Such an important thing right now, especially as times are changing by the day. And we'll make sure to get your information online if anyone has any questions about this, and just making sure that, of course, everyone during this time has those resources. Bonnie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, and stay safe out there.
You too.